On the Pat McAfee show today, Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, had this to say about what he's hearing from players and front office executives about Baker Mayfield.
He had the shoulder problems. He played through it. It was just a nightmare. But I think bigger than that, fellas, is the leadership or lack thereof on his part. That's what I've heard. And talking to not only players, but coaches, GMs, there is a sense around the league that Baker Mayfield is still a really immature guy. And even if he's healthy, do you really want to deal with that in your locker room? And from my perspective, you know, he has not been the face, the leader of that locker room really since day one. He's never been able to get to that point, which as a number one pick, you would hope that happens.
AJ, is immature the same labeling as distraction?
That can be, right?
He's fucked then. You get labeled as a distraction or anything like that around the NFL, it's over.
You can grow up though. Can't he grow up? Like, Jordan, don't you think he could go if he got the right opportunity? And he had a good year. Obviously, when things are going well, guys usually behave and things seem to go pretty well in the locker room. Don't you think he can kind of revamp his career and his image?
Well, maybe this humbled him too, you know?
Yeah. I think both, yeah. I asked a couple guys, like, is he a bad dude or is he just immature? And it was more the latter.
So, Quincy, a little more colorful than normal, but you get the sense there that kind of what you were saying. There's got to be a realization things have to change.
Yeah, and I just don't know if it's there. And that's going to be the thing, right? Baker Mayfield, I think he needs, in his camp, needs to realize this is not Brett Favre getting traded from the Falcons. This is not Drew Brees getting let go from the Chargers. This is Jameis Winston getting let go for Tom Brady. And what I mean by that is this is not a quarterback that people thought could be just easily rehabilitated on the market that they could just get, right? This is not one of those things. Teams are very, very hesitant around him, similar to how they were with the maturity issues, right? With Jameis Winston, where they had all that stuff coming out of Florida State. It continued in Tampa Bay, and then it really affected him to the point where he had to sign a veteran minimum to stay in the NFL, to play for the Saints. And it took him 2 years on that minimum to be able to get to the point where he got a decent contract again, even though he was a number one overall pick. And let's not forget, when Jameis Winston was coming out of college, he was the number one. Like, we were talking about him like he was the next Andrew Luck. People weren't talking about Baker like that, right? That's the program he has to get on. If I were him in his camp, I would strongly suggest that, hey, wait this whole process out. You've done all you could. If you get traded somewhere, cool. I honestly think it would be better for him to get released and go somewhere and be a backup, because that's what he needs, more so than to play, because people know he can play okay if given the right opportunity. Is more or less, can you be a good teammate? Can you be mature behind the scenes, right? Go there and sit behind Tom Brady for a year. Go there and sit behind somebody established for a year. Prove that you could be a good teammate. Prove that you're not going to be a distraction. And then in a couple of years, teams will be ready to give you the fair shake that you want. But if you go to Carolina, right, and you have all of this hanging over your head, and people already kind of have it in your head that you're immature, the second you have a hiccup, they're going to boot you. They're going to be done, right? Because it's going to be the same problem. So if I'm Baker, I really would strongly suggest for them to take the rehab route, not like an actual rehab, but the image rehab route, and just accept being a backup somewhere, right? And I know it's hard for a guy like Baker who's never accepted to be a backup, and this is why I have questions on whether this is going to actually happen, because this is a guy who everywhere he went never accepted to be a backup. But this is the point of his career where he's at, where he just needs to accept that he can be a backup, because he can start. But, you know, if he has it go wrong a little bit, it will be the end of his career, and we're going to be talking about the most insanely talented quarterback in the XFL next year, or not next year, but in a couple of years, because of something like that. Because this is, like Pat McAfee said, this is the stuff that keeps you out the league. Like, you know, more so than bad play.